Okay, everybody, this is part 2 of our pole shift, spiritual hack, spiritual war, catch you up to speed, let you see collective consciousness is a very real thing, and being psychic is a very real thing, and there's a human evolution happening kind of stuff. So we're going to get right into this. Um, but real quick, I want to mention the word homo noeticus to everyone, because this is the self-knowing human, and this is the evolution that we are proceeding to at this time, evolving to. And I want you to keep that word in mind. It's going to come up in the video. Um, I also want to say to you that there are quantum leaps of enlightenment happening right now that are backed by science, and I'm going to provide you evidence of that within these videos that I'm making that have to do with our spiritual evolution, our spiritual war, um, the changes happening in the cosmos, the solar system, on our planet, etc. And then I'm also going to be doing a video very soon for you to understand better about the infiltration that's happening, this consciousness hack that's taking place. And the Council of Nine is a part of that, okay? I know a lot of you do not like to hear me say that the aliens are not here to help save us. They're here to watch. If anything, they're here to watch this play out. They're here to see which way we go. Okay? So they're not here to take people off planet. They're not here to save you. I mean, they might have their own rules about some other beings that are here on our planet that they're dealing with. I don't know anything about that for sure, so I can't speak on that. But what I do know for sure is that they are not here to save us. This is not that scenario where someone else is our savior. This is that scenario where we decide if we're going to be our saviors or not. We are who we've been waiting for, guys. I've been told this my entire life by God. We are who we've been waiting for. Not Jesus is coming back to save us. Not aliens are coming to save us. Not governments or Q or anybody is coming to save us. We are who we've been waiting for. That's what I've been told my entire life. Okay? We have approximately 7 months until a pole shift. If all the data is correct, all the scientific data, we have about 7 months. That's April of next year to change this on some level or not. So I want to begin this video with this thought in mind. Do you want to surrender to whatever comes? Or do you want to learn your true powers of thought, energy, and focus on slowing down or completely stopping it all together? These earth changes, these solar changes. Because there are things we can do to assist in this, to aid the whole process so that we're not upsetting the balance of nature, but we're not allowing it to upset our balance of nature either. There is a middle ground. There is a happy medium. There is a Goldilocks zone to be in. Okay? I'm asking you, are you ready to take real control and learn who you are and what you can do to help? And the beauty of it is you can sit in your armchair or your office chair or on your porch or wherever you want to be and do this wonderful, magnificent, powerful work from the comforts of any of your choices. It's not physical work. It's not hard mental learning. The hardest thing about it is getting out of your own damn way. I'm calling on anyone who ever has sworn an oath to any type of call of duty or service to humanity in any way to enlist in this endeavor that is very measurable scientifically, to watch and witness as we grow and change and learn, giving you the confidence that you need in your true God-given abilities that you have had since birth and have mildly used to some extent or another. Don't just leave it to nature. Don't just leave it up to God. He wants soldiers in the last days, not fearful, faithful servants, fighting, faithful, dedicated warriors, soldiers. My favorite church song, aside from Amazing Grace, has always been Onward, Christian Soldiers. Those were the gallant and brave who volunteered to be enlisted in the cause of good. Much like our soldiers all around the world do for all of us every day. Government officials that are good do for us every day. Police officers, firefighters, ambulatory drivers, all the way down to the taxi cab drivers, the people who work in restaurants. They're all in some sense of service to others. They're all necessary. They all play an important role in us achieving the same goal. Some of us are light workers. Some of us are real soldiers. Some of us are just housewives. And so they feel small, but they shouldn't. They should empower themselves, because that's one hell of a good job. That's a lot of hats to wear to be a mom or a dad, a stay-at-home dad. Preachers, teachers, nurses, doctors, babysitters. You're all important. Everybody is important. All of the labor workers, electricians of the world, glass cutters, all have a very important role. As you all have a very important role in this that plays out whether you want to believe it or not, want to help or not, it's still going to happen. Knowledge is power, and together we can do big things. Now I'm going to share my screen so I can show you some facts.
We touched on a lot of interesting topics last time, and I had the feeling we never really finished off all of the concepts that pertain to the theme of a cosmically supported awakening process. The idea that the magnetosphere is changing, and it's changing and it has a relationship to our consciousness, and that it leads us to the ideology of, the split between whether we believe that we are special in the universe, that we are kind of chosen, we've been created by a creator, or whether we are really just random rocks and atoms that happen to collide in one of those trillions or infinity based kind of universe models that are put out there by the atheistic view of science, and where it's leading us. Because I think we're in times right now where, as you can say, a lot of stuff is going on, and it's a lot of people are kind of despairing in a lot of ways too, because it's like there's such a flood of information and a flood of negative prognoses coming at us from, example, the mainstream news. All we hear over here, I don't know about you guys over there, but over here in Europe, we're hearing constantly about we can brace ourselves to be freezing all winter long. Then there's been cryptic, weird messages appearing by a German politician saying, "Look out for September 24th," even without any context. It's hard to kind of place your finger on it, but a lot of people can go into an apocalyptic kind of mindset. And these are apocalyptic times. And I think that the radiation coming out of the center of the galaxy is stimulating it in every direction, as well as for the positive as for the negative, you might say.
I think it's a time where no stone will be left unturned. And it is also our duty to bring our light every day to this, because this uncovering is so necessary, or we will continue to kind of run around with a blindfold through this, through the history of the future, which I don't believe is good or positive. So that's why we want to rip off the blindfold. No matter what we see, no matter what truths we discover, it can only be this way. And I think our intention is always to show what positive that brings and how we are really ultimately in control of the future by our visions, by what we envision, and by what we put our energy into and what our intentions are. One of the things that we just briefly discussed and that we want to talk about today is with looking at the Earth's magnetosphere, with looking what is happening, what abilities it actually uncovers when the magnetosphere decreases. You also go into a bigger question, namely, what is the Earth exactly? Where is it in relation to everything else? And the science, whether on purpose or through programming, has it all wrong?
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that is important is to look at the actual information about what's going on without a filter on it. And that's, I think that's one of the reasons that we looked at the pole shift stuff, because this stuff is going on. I can throw that up. You can remember this diagram, showing us that how things are moving from the 1800s right up to now, and that it's increasing to the point where here, this last little stretch of 36 miles could be hitting us as soon as in 7 months, 6 or 7 months. We could be looking at some cataclysmic events. And it has to do with the fact that the magnetosphere is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, right? So what does that mean? It means our psychic abilities are improving, are increasing. These are all science tests that were done. I don't know how many were done in the States, but I know for a fact through some of the sources I have over here that in Russia, they did a lot of work on that. The Kozyrov mirrors, for example, where they put astronauts into space, like simulated space, because it has to do with when you're in a place where you're disconnected from the Earth's magnetosphere, then you begin to have hallucinatory experience. And we showed a little bit in the last time around these graphs, the correlation between the magnetosphere activity and the actual hallucinatory activity of the brain, which I like to translate not into hallucinations, but visionary experiences. So people are having, more visionary experiences when the magnetosphere decreases. And another interesting thing that we should mention is that when the Earth's magnetosphere decays and decreases, there is one organ in our body which generates its own magnetosphere as well. And that is another one of these interesting coincidences, right? The heart. The heart generates a magnetosphere that extends up to 2 to 4 meters outside of our body in a radius. And that means that our new center, our new compass, our new magnetic compass actually is our heart. And our heart has a brain. And the brain of the heart, which a lot of people don't realize it has its own little brain, and it communicates with our other brain. So they come into direct relationship. And then, of course, the other thing that was happening, which we talked about, which I'll show again real quick, is this diagram here showing us how out of the galactic center right now, we're getting hit with these, all these different, radiation particles, X-rays, gamma rays, right? But another thing is coming at us is this frequency of 150 megahertz, which is that particular frequency which resonates with our human DNA. Meaning there seems to be, like, if we look at the cosmos as a living being, as an organism that's all connected, then the fact that there's this sudden increase of this 150 megahertz frequency, which is bypassing space-time, which is traveling faster than the speed of light on a scalar level, it's hitting us almost instantaneously from the center. So we're directly in resonance with whatever is the universe is going through itself. It's evolving on its own level. And part of the particles coming out also are positrons. And we touched a little bit on that before too. What are positrons? Positrons are like, there's matter and there's antimatter, right? And antimatter is basically the positron. Matter is the electron. And even CERN did an experiment which they actually, showed that when matter and antimatter collide, they cancel each other out. So in a way, it's like karma, you could say, or consciousness connected to, positrons and electrons on a physical extent is being affected and canceled out. So what does that mean? It's like karma. So I have this cool quote by Barbara Hand Clow, which says, our karmic cleansing accelerates when the positrons, antimatter to the electron, in our body are released and collide with their corresponding electron twins. Yeah, cool. And then the other thing is these twins are drawn to us all from all over the universe. In the beginning, we are overwhelmed by the amount of data, of forgotten information, because they're very numerous, these lost particles, and they're basically all of a sudden available to us again. So people are confused. So when you were talking about how all this crazy stuff is going on right now in the universe, this has.
So I just want to simplify this for you by saying to you, this is exactly the scientific data needed to back up my saying that all familial karmic debt will be erased. Your karmic debt, everybody in your family's histories, family debt, karmic debt, it's all going to be released, clean slates. This is it, guys. This is why all of the tarot readers are telling you that all of us are ending our karmic debt, because it's meant to happen right now. That's how you go into the golden age. You don't come into a golden age with karmic debt. You evolve and you get a clean slate. Okay?
A direct physical explainable correlation in terms of science, in terms of particle science and quantum physics.
See, I might even take this to the next level and say that perhaps we are the source of this correspondence, and our consciousness shift actually creates all these shifts in the universe that come back reflected to us. We just,
ding, 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 ding. He gets a prize for being correct.
And this is, of course, this plays to the geocentric model. It plays to the extraordinary place that we are in and the extraordinary beings that we are. That plays right into this picture, which is what my belief is actually, that our consciousness evolution literally causes these things that reflect back to us. It's just a different perspective, right? But
yeah.
Ultimately, the effect is the same.
That's right. Because simply enough, you waking up to your fuller potential, your fullest potential, whichever the level may be, doesn't matter. All apply here. The simple fact that we can collectively be aware of the consciousness connection that we all have immediately quantum leaps us into a better outcome of all of this. It's an immediate blessing. Just like when we tell you to manifest in your own life, to just be grateful for the little things that you have, to connect with spirit, to trust your intuition, to really put the emotion behind what you desire manifesting and creating. It's that on the ninth to the ninth power, right?
Ultimately, the effect is the same. What would change if we looked at the Earth as the center of the universe versus the current model, which is a heliocentric model, and very much this has disregard for any higher being, a higher power, a creator. It is all, like you say, just accidental and planless, designless.
Okay, I mean the most obvious thing that would change if the geocentric model was relooked at, or if science decided to revisit that model, it would mean that all of science as we know it would have to be rewritten.
That's a simple answer. You know, it reminds me of a story. Real quick, I wanted to throw this in because I think it's important to.
We're just going to bump ahead here.
We're learning so many things about science that are not in terms of just science alone. We're learning that there's called a consensus science. And a consensus science is that form of science where somebody says, I have some deep pockets, I need this experiment to say this, and then the science will produce that experiment because they will receive the funding to produce that result. And that's not real science, though. Real science is where a scientist has a theory and they propose a model to experiment to prove that theory. And if they are right, then the experiment will verify that theory. And if they're a little off,
In other words, they just buy their bullshit. We're going to move on ahead here. Okay, well, I'll let that load. I'm going to go see something here too. Okay, I think I have this one ready. We're going to jump over this other video in a minute.
Reality into correlation.
well, it's interesting you mentioned that because, again, that subject of that particular topic comes up again and again because we're looking right now at a situation in the world is like I mean if I look at some of these images, right? I mean, this kind of stuff here is taking place right now. The date on this video is the 27th of August. Okay, we're talking a couple weeks ago. This is a case where there was a flood in Pakistan where 30 million people were displaced out of their homes, right? And then there was like other areas of the world, like it just didn't happen only in Pakistan. It was happening also in like Dallas. There was areas like in Dallas that were being hit. These images, for example, are showing us Dallas, right? This is on the 23rd of August, right? So this is going on all over the world as well. This is happening in Dallas. It's happening in Pakistan. It's happening in Paris. There were these floods that were going on, and floods. Here's China. This is going on in China, and most of our food and production that we're consuming over in the Western world, we've outsourced it to these areas, right? This is Paris, right? This is on just a couple weeks ago. So these changes are taking place because of what I was describing in terms of the magnetosphere changes and in terms of the changes in, like, here's dolphins in Finland, tens of thousands of dolphins totally confused. They don't know where to go. They're swimming in circles. It's never happened before, right? We're not being told about this on news except for in the context that we are the sinners. This is all has to do with control of society. So we're looking at two things here. You could look at it as there's a group of scientists who really do want to, take care of the planet, and they need to get us to to smarten up and be less toxic into the planet. And you could look at it as there is a group of controllers that are using these events to manipulate consciousness toward their agenda. And that we're seeing more and more that if you look at conspiracies, if you're a conspiracy analyst, which I prefer to the word conspiracy theorist, then you see that there has been concerted groups of people that have throughout history banded together and used their, in most cases, financial power to dominate and steer their hegemony worldwide. And one of those things that they were doing it with now in our modern time is climate change. Like this is here what we get thrown at a lot of times at our faces, right? This is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, right? Their scenario showing us the hockey puck, right? And you see here the black, if we do nothing, oh my God, we're going to go up 5 degrees, right? And red is, if we continue with the current policies, and yellow is the country's current pledges when they follow through on their pledges to cut emissions, and then blue is like nothing, and we do everything, and then basically we turn into the kind of society that they're trying to shape us into. And you would think at first glance when you look at that curve that, damn, it's pretty radical, right? But here's the perspective, right? It's all about scale. And let's look at the difference between, on the left here, this is that hockey puck, right? It's about 140 years from 1880s onward. And yeah, damn, it looks like we're really shooting up. But right next to it over here on the right is a scale that shows us 2,000 years of climate temperature relationship. And we are right over here, which means that in the medieval period, this line right here represents the temperatures in that period, right? This is before Industrial Revolution. Here's where the Vikings first settled on Greenland. They only could settle on Greenland. Why? Because the temperatures were mild. And then the temperatures began to decrease, right? And eventually they bailed. Like here's where they bailed. And then we went into a little ice age. And then we came out of that ice age, and now.
So the point here is that this is cyclical. This happens on a regular cycle. It's part of nature. It's not man-made. This is something that happens according to our placement in the cosmos.
Now we're just kind of climbing up. But what's interesting is you think, okay, we are going up, right? That means we're getting up. Well, here's another scale. It's called the Milankovitch cycle. It's over 450,000 years. And you can recognize that scale again, right? So, and this is even acknowledged by NASA, okay? There's a link down there if you want to go check out the source if you don't believe me. I try to source everything so you guys can check it out. But here, this diagram also shows us that carbon didn't drive the temperature change, but that actually the temperature changed first, and that released carbon into the atmosphere. And so basically, when the average temperature is -1 degrees, CO2 is released. And so in the last 12 to 15,000 years, we've been hovering in that sweet zone where more carbon dioxide is released. But that doesn't necessarily mean that carbon is the problem, right? And then the other thing you see is this. This is the actual total on the left amount of gases in the atmosphere on our planet. And that little red thing, I don't even know if you can see it, that is 0.4%. That makes up CO2. And now if we blow that little red slice up into its own little pie, then that little yellow slice right here is the amount that man-made CO2 contribution to basically to the environment. And this argument, these two slides in their own basically destroy that standard IPCC model. And it's another example of how basically it's called dumbing down society. They don't show us these facts. So they just show us these horrible pictures of these global catastrophes. And then they show us the hockey puck, the hockey stick, and they tell us, this is you've done this. You are the sinners. And the only way to fix this is for you to pay carbon taxes and pay millions and trillions and whatever amounts of money. I mean, everywhere, every day.
Nope, just to keep us working and busy and dumb and enslaved. Okay, so let's jump through here. There we go. Back up a little bit just so you have context. I think that right there might be okay.
Copernicus came along and said, no, the Earth is moving through an ether. right? And then, Galileo came out with his telescope and he actually discovered the moons of Jupiter. So that was the first time that science kind of went head to head with the Vatican, with the church,
Uh-huh.
because the church had a monopoly on this idea that Ptolemy was, that everything is at the center and we're at the center, and he was using his model to try and explain unusual movements of the planets, which we now know are the planets around our Earth. And it wasn't until basically that Newton came along and figured out this gravity model, that we figured out that, okay, gravity attracts things. And but people even misunderstood Newton. And what, Newton
And
wasn't
gravity.
saying that, which is the Einstein model, that, the Earth, the sun is this massive gravitationally strong body, which is bending space. And that the Earth is being attracted to it via gravity and is rolling around it, and that the sun isn't affected, that just the Earth is being moved. But what Newton's model actually said is that, no, it doesn't work that way. Neither the sun nor the Earth is moving around each other. There is a point between them, which is the actual focal point of this null point, gravity. And so the Earth and the sun are in a kind of dance. And, so that means that, if we were to entertain the idea that we are at the center of the universe, then Ernst Mach's model, I'll show you a picture of what he came up with. He came up with something called, relative motion based on Newton. And he said that if it's true that the Earth is at the center, it would explain something that that is acknowledged in science, is that the Earth isn't round. The Earth is in an oblation shape, right? It is being stretched. And, if we want to hold to the idea of whatever gravity is, we don't even really understand it very well, then, Ernst Mach's model actually is very interesting. And it was Mach that proposed that it was regardless of whether the Earth was moving through space or rotating around the sun or fixed at the center, the math works out for both models. Yeah. So, what you could be saying here with this, what the meaning of all this is that Newton or Copernicus is coming back to haunt science, and that our new models are proving that this model needs to be revisited. Like, for example, they found through something called the Sloan Digital Sky Survey satellite, they sent this out and they photographed basically all of the universe and all of the galaxies right to the edge of what they could measure. And if you look at this diagram here, what's really strange, and they can't explain this. Okay, this is the 2D version of it, but this is the Earth at the center. And what they found, strangely enough, is that these lines here are spaced at intervals of 250 million light years. And for some weird reason, all of the galaxies tend to arrange themselves along these spirals. And if you turn it to a 3D model on the right-hand side, you would see that essentially everything lines up as if the Earth is right in the center, and there's this radiation going out from our point of the universe. Yeah. And the next one
kind of like we're at the heart of it.
We're at the heart of it right here. Maybe it's not just the Earth. Maybe it's our whole solar system. Maybe it's this entanglement between the sun and the Earth, right? And then the other one that kind of really stumps them, right? It's this one. It's called the axis of evil. They even call it the axis of evil because it's evil because it destroys their physics argument. Like we said, if they accept this argument, it would mean that they'd have to throw all of physics out the window. And what you're looking at here is a map of the cosmic background radiation. And the atheistic heliocentric scientists said that if there was a big bang, all of the cosmic background radiation would be spread evenly all the way to the outer reaches of the universe from the center. But as it turns out, they've basically found that when they sent out the Planck satellites, because they had this model and it didn't make any sense. They had this weird axis, and they sent out the Planck satellite because the Planck satellite would settle the argument once and for all that it just wasn't some distorted noise in their calculations. And so when they brought the Planck model back, the data that they gathered with the Planck satellites, they actually found out that the the cosmic radiation organize itself according to spherical harmonics, and they follow this particular thing called this axis. And if you form this axis into a sphere, what you get is like an equator, and you get north ecliptic pole and you get the south ecliptic pole. And so what does that mean? Basically, if you accept what this is, and if you accept this data as being real, and right now they have no other explanation for why, but if you accept it, then you get this. The Earth is right at the center of the ecliptic plane. And even Lawrence Krauss, who's like one of the absolute, diehard heliocentric scientists, absolute atheist,
Okay,
he
bear with me
says,
here.
he's quoted as saying, when you look at the CMB map, which is that background radiation map I just showed you, you also see that the structure that is observed is, in fact, in a weird way, correlated to the plane of the Earth around the sun. Is this Copernicus coming back to haunt us? That's crazy. We're looking out at the whole universe, right? And that's just some of the science that's been coming in that seems to indicate. And there's other points. I mean, there's a whole data set. There's like the redshift. It's another thing. They look out at the edge of the universe and all the galaxies turn to red, which means that the wavelength of the light is changing. It's becoming, so that it seems to indicate the universe is stretching out. And the only way you would perceive the red shift is if you were sitting right in the middle, and every direction you looked, you saw the red shift. And that, guess what? That's exactly what seems to be the case. So I think it's interesting because I've been, I never really accepted the Big Bang Theory. I never thought it could work because there's so many aspects of the Big Bang Theory that are coming to light.
I've never accepted the Big Bang Theory either. Doesn't sound right to me. I think there might have been something right at the end of this video. Okay, no, we're done with that one. Let me jump over to this one because we're gonna get into the spiritual war end of it, the ins and outs, the whys, the wherefores, all of that.
Just read through a few of these slides because it's a good starting point for a meaningful discussion.
Yes, sir. Please do that.
Yeah, so, here we are basically with the idea of the patron being the Rockefellers, right? And I encourage everybody to go and check out John Klitschek's article. I have the link at the bottom there. I was played this article. Somebody shot it to me a few weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago, and I checked it out. And it's like I've gone further into all of his links, and
following the
but
money,
I
guys.
think he summarizes a lot of good things here. So let's just go through a few of his ideas as kind of the fundamental, let's say, baseline. Okay,
Midwife being the key word here.
To midwife the technoetic trans-evolution of the universal Christ mind idolized by Fuller and Teilhard de Chardin, Hubbard set up the foundation for conscious evolution, which was seed funded by Lawrence Rockefeller, the brother of John D. Rockefeller III, David Rockefeller, Nelson Rockefeller, and Winthrop Rockefeller. Got enough Rockefellers in there for you? Lawrence was president and founding trustee of Rockefeller Brothers Fund, which is a corporate philanthropy that finances social impact investments. Where have we heard that before? In biotechnology and digital technology. These, of course, are key building blocks in the Internet of Things and Internet of Bodies matrix at the crux of Hubbard's transhumanist dreams of collective conscious evolution. Lawrence also bankrolled esoteric studies into Gnostic Christ consciousness and noetical parapsychology, right? Rockefellers are doing this, okay? And for those who don't know what noosphere is, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, he is sort of the grandfather of the noosphere, which he fathered in 1947. This stuff is not new. They've been, like I say, they've been ramping this stuff up for the last pretty much century. And he is kind of the forefather of the idea of the noosphere, which is the idea that life moves from the body toward the sphere of mind, right? Which is where they're trying to move us. This is what transhumanism is really all about. It's about getting away from the natural body and into the artificial world. Okay, so to continue, in the prelude to her evolutionary testament of co-creation, which was dedicated to Lawrence Rockefeller, so we can't say that she's not, that she's accidentally just taking their cash. She's woven together she has relationships with these people, okay? Let's not make no bones about it, right? Hubbard lauds how he was instrumental in helping her found the foundation for conscious evolution this is her quote, With the great gratitude, I dedicate evolutionary testament. The promise will be kept to Lawrence Rockefeller, who recognized its purpose to help bring forth the Christ of the 21st century and supported me in forming the foundation for Christ conscious evolution to bring it forward into the world, right? This is her foundation. This is what she bases her work on. This is where she draws all the people in that she tries to put together, the people that she endorses, the heart maths, right? The Deepak Chopras of the world, right? They all are connected to this foundation of conscious evolution, right? According
This
to
is
the
a
official website
spiritual
of the Foundation for Conscious
infiltration.
Evolution, this Rockefeller funded, tax exempt, of course, because they always want to save their millions that they don't want to spend, foundation advances synergistic transhuman evolution driven by the advent of radical evolutionary technologies such as biotechnology, nanotechnology, quantum computing, space exploration, etc. The tools are there to transform ourselves, our bodies, and our world. We can and are actually moving beyond the creature human condition toward a new species, a universal humanity capable of co-evolving with nature, quote unquote. In other words, fueled by the Rockefeller money, the people who brought us the pharma industry, the Foundation for Consciousness Evolution, for Conscious Evolution advocates for humankind to merge with biotech and nanotech, quantum computers, in order to evolve humanity into a new transhuman species, which Hubbard has dubbed Homo Universalis.
Okay. Homo universalis, not Homo noetic, which is the prime creator's way for us to evolve in the quantum realms without quantum computers or nanotech or biotech to get us there. We don't need to be a transhuman when we are a transforming human naturally.
Okay, I've heard that word come from many people that I know. Okay, they may not realize, really what they're talking here. And this is the crux of the issue, right? Do we realize what we're really saying and believing in here? Not only did Rockefeller provide the seed financing for Hubbard's Foundation for Conscious Evolution, but he also bankrolled many of the high-tech industries, including biotech, nanotech, quantum computer, which the Foundation for Conscious Evolution sees as vehicles for conscious transhuman evolution, right? It continues in Hubbard's book, 52 Codes for Conscious Self-Evolution, a process of metamorphosis to realize our full potential self. Code 33, interesting number there, called for human beings to come forward as a new norm in order to evolve the human species
Where have we
from
heard that term
Homo
before?
sapiens sapiens to Homo universalis. Later in 2012, Hubbard published another book, Birth 2012 and Beyond, Humanity's Great Shift to the Age of Conscious Evolution.
Now, I want you to just notice that they say birth 2012 and beyond. This is a spiritual war, and this is spiritual hijacking that they are doing because they know the same thing that the Mayans knew, the Sumerians knew about the Anunnaki's return, so on and so forth. They knew through their seeing the future technologies, they knew that 2012 was a pivotal point for us. It was when the clock literally ticked over to the age of Aquarius, which is the age of conscious evolution. And they saw one outcome from two timelines. And they've been doing something ever since to try to change that outcome. Now, I ask you, are they doing it for our good or for theirs?
In a section titled From 2012 to 2020 and Beyond, Hubbard proclaimed that the 8 years after the birth, the 2012 birth, leading up to 2020, will be critical for implementing.
Okay, so we got the gist of that. We're going to move forward because I have more to get to here and I don't want to make a really long video again. Also, by the way, I want to mention to you the codes that were brought up, there are actually 144
whole
codes
transhumanist thing. It isn't just the idea of having
to activate, not just those 52. And I have the information for those 144 fire codes that will fast track you, if you're interested in learning them, to your process of evolution.
tech and blissing out, with heart, synchronization with the whole planet and locking into the Schumann frequencies. Those are all good things, right? But it leads somewhere. And this is what I want to talk about next. So it goes on, okay, about Christ consciousness and cybernetic transhumanity. In her 2001 book, Emergence, The Shift from Ego to Essence, 10 Steps to the Universal Human, Hubbard relayed how Teilhard de Chardin's noosphere is what we might call the thinking layer of Earth, or the mind sphere. Think of this noosphere as an invisible yet all-pervasive superorganism. Here, each of us lives much as our own cells live inside of our body. The noosphere is composed of our collective consciousness, as well as the intelligence that is creating our extended bodies in the form of rapidly growing technology, including the internet, biotechnology, nanotechnology.
The noosphere is our membrane that is literally that word, memory brain, of all of the consciousness that inhabits this planet. We are symbiotic with this planet. We were told we were made from the clay of this earth for a reason.
Okay, this is all true. Okay, what she's talking about is true. And this is the thing that's the crux of it all. This leaning on scientific facts about the noosphere. I talk about the fact that there's the field, that we feed the field and we draw from the field and we have this connection that's tied into the earth and the Schumann frequencies. Well, they call it the noosphere. So they're sort of edging in on that terminology. It's all about sort of hijacking the technology over to their side. During her 2017 speech,
Exactly.
Awakening the New Species in You at the Global Purpose, always global, isn't it? The Global Purpose Movement's Purpose Summit in San Francisco, Hubbard declared that Teilhard de Chardin's noosphere is now the internet nervous system of the planet. And there's enough of us now to wake up our planetary nervous system through high tech, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, robotics, genetics, all of that being the powers of our mythological gods.
Now, see, they're giving you false promises there. If you want to beware of a devil, if you want to beware of a Satan, this is it right here. This is going to be your mark of the beast. And that is also that technology, that nanotechnology is also included in these types of injections that are happening to some people that will be controlled through things like 5G and etc. So keep up with me here, okay?
Okay, now we're touching into the essence here. This is about the gods, the godhood, right? And it goes further. In some, Hubbard believed that by harnessing biotech and nanotech robotics,
So I'm just going to let this play through here for a moment. He's giving you false promises of godhood, okay? And if you'll see very closely, it says inverting the biblical gospel of how God humbled himself to descend from heaven in order to be incarnated into the human body of Jesus Christ, exalting the humans that they can be the gods through this technology. You see? This is all seduction for Christification. They're actually blasphemous in the true teachings of Jesus, much worse than they did with the biblical texts and construing Jesus's messages to us, where he was trying to empower you and take off your shackles. If you want to believe that Jesus Christ is your Savior, you better know that it's because his words we're trying to free you. That's a fact. I think there may be one more bit here. Okay, yeah, I want you to see that. History began when man invented the gods, and it will end when man becomes gods. Homo sapiens, as we know them, will disappear in a century or so because humans are hackable animals. See, they've already figured out that we have this collective consciousness. They created the World Wide Web to simulate it, to create an AI consciousness. And they've already figured out how they can hack us. The days of believing Jesus is our Savior are over, they think. The millions of jobless people will become the useless class. Now, there's going to be another clip I'm going to show you of Elon Musk that's going to segue all of this last two sentences here. But for now, I want you to focus on they've been trying to figure out how to change this outcome. So they've discovered that humans are hackable animals. And in the process of doing that, you need to understand that that means they have already reverse engineered what makes us tick and created technologies to seduce us with to replace our natural prime creator's plan of our spiritual evolution. They're trying to hack our spiritual growth so that they can continue the chaos rather than us move into a new age, a more peaceful, plentiful, bountiful age. And this is not new age bullshit. Okay? I'm showing you the difference between the new age bullshitters that are part of the hack and the truth that Jesus was trying to teach us. This is a real war, ladies and gentlemen. But it's a war for your soul.
This is what he's all about, and he's got his formula, right? He's got biological knowledge, sensorize everything, a la heart math, or further versions of sensory devices, right? Compute power times data equals which is the ability to hack humans. And one of the guys that's promoting the hack humans thing it's connected to Esalen. It's this guy. This guy's name is Mikey Siegel, and he talks about something called group flow. And what you see in this picture right here is essentially you see this group they're hanging out, and what are they doing? They're wired up. They're wired up because they're trying to figure out how to synchronize with each other, to some heartbeat or to some voice or to some person, right, through technology. And they're glorified. They're all into it. This guy worked at MIT and at NASA, Stanford. I mean, these people are seriously into.
They were all part of reverse engineering for the hack, for the steal. You see? Consciousness hacking. It's conscious tech that looks like wisdom and love, but is not. Democratizing the divine through psychedelics, technology, and this false teaching of meditation. Because meditation is not what they are teaching you. It's not. It's all part of their plan to confuse you and keep you from reaching your fullest potential. This is Humanity Plus. This is a company. What does it mean to be a human in a technologically enhanced world? Humanity Plus, also known as World Transhumanists Association, is a 501c3 conveniently international nonprofit membership organization that advocates the ethical use of technology, such as artificial intelligence, to expand human capacities. In other words, we want people to be better. And this is the goal of their transhumanism. They want people to be better than just well. They make it sound so pretty and innocent. Be smart enough to know it isn't. Now, here's that new normal again, where new age meets new normal. Ever since the announcement of CV-19 lockdowns, there's been a spate of propaganda campaigns from government bureaucrats, corporate oligarchs, globalist technocrats, who have been lecturing about the necessity to acclimate to the new normal. You probably never heard this before CV slogans in 2020, but Hubbard was prophesying the dawning of a new normal at least as far back as 2008. In fact, Hubbard foretold that 2020 would mark the pivotal year of the global shift toward the new normal that is transitioning the world into the futurist's singularity envisioned by Google's director of engineering, Ray Kurzweil, who is the founder of Singularity University, which is a post-humanist think tank where Hubbard promoted her dreams of harnessing conscious evolution to engineer a new transhuman species. You see, they've been planning for this for a long time. Even CV-19. It has a 19 because that's how many patents they have on it, honey. It's patented. I think that might be all of this video. Okay, yeah. So close that one out, and I want you to listen to this Elon Musk video, and then I'm going to show you the keys of Enoch over here.
Future, you will be able to save and replay memories. I think almost all cars produced will be autonomous. I don't think we're going to have a choice. The future is going to be weird.
In conversation with Joe Rogan, Elon made an astonishing prediction, stating that with the help of his Neuralink device, humans won't need verbal communication to talk to each other anymore. Hence, all communication will become telepathic in the next 10 years. Take a look.
Hence, if he already has the technology, that means they've reverse engineered us.
You would be able to communicate very quickly and with far more precision, and language would, I'm not sure what would happen to language, but you could probably, with a situation like this, you would be able to just, it would be like, kind of like the Matrix. You want to speak a different language, no problem.
Right.
Just wire it, or just download the program.
See, and listen to how he mutters that part, just download the program, because he doesn't want you to catch that part of it, really. He wants to slip that part under the rug and attract you with all the shiny, flashy shit of his plan. People may think he's a great guy because he bought Twitter, but let me tell you what. This man right here, that's no angel.
Well,
You'll be able to interface with each other in some sort of a non-verbal, non-physical way, where you will transfer data back and forth to each other without having to actually use your mouth and make noises.
Exactly. So
how many?
And you can already do that, guys. I taught my children how to do this from a very young age, and we speak telepathically to each other all the time, even if we're not in the same house together. My third born, by the time she was 15, she was so well versed at tuning in to a telepathic communication with me that as she's at home and I'm on my way back from the grocery store, which was a 20-minute drive, I was thinking to her to turn on the oven and get it preheated because I bought frozen pizzas for supper. And when I got home, guess what? My oven was preheated because she picked up on that message. We can do this now, and it has nothing to do with bloodlines. It's God given to all of us. We all come from God's blood.
Years before you don't have to talk.
If the development continues to accelerate, then maybe like 5 years, 5 to 10 years.
That's quick. That's really quick.
That's the best case scenario.
No talking anymore in 5 years.
Best case scenario.
So how are we going to have that in 5 to 10 years if they've not already had this technology for decades and just didn't tell us?
Call those memories anytime, including all the sensory experiences from the past. Check it out.
You could also save state. And
Save state?
Save state, like save your brain state, like a saved game in a video game.
Whoa. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you could save state and restore that state into a biological being if you wanted to in the future. In principle, there's like nothing like from a physics standpoint that prevents this. Now, you'd be a little different, but then you're also a little different when you wake up in the morning from yesterday, and you're a little different. In fact, if you say like you 5 years ago versus you today, it's
Notice how he's trying to normalize it, right? Rationalize it with those normal changes that I was speaking of earlier about how we change as we learn and grow and mature. But it wasn't from technology. It was from within you. And that saving state, we already do that now. It's called having a memory. And it's DNA memory, guys. It goes with you to the next life, to the next life, to the next life. And that too, I have witnessed to be fact, proven facts. My 3-year-old told me, my fourth born told me when she was 3 that she used to be my father. And she used to sit, or I used to sit on her lap just like this. She was up on my lap with her tiny little beautiful hands on both sides of my face, beaming with light. And there's tons of other accounts of children in the world who remember their past lives. It's DNA memory. We always have it. We can tap into any memories we want by tapping into the collective consciousness of everything, of the universe. It's called the Akashic Records. We don't need technology, guys. We don't need the technology. We can already do it.
In the future, you'll be able to save and replay memories. I mean, this is obviously sounding increasingly like a Black Mirror episode. But yeah, essentially, if you have a whole brain interface, everything that's encoded in memory, you could upload.
Adding to this, Elon just recently stated that SpaceX will be able to land first people on the surface of Mars in the next 5 to 10 years.
When do you think SpaceX will land a human being on Mars?
Best case is about 5 years. Worst.
And again, that's because they already have that in place. Because you know that the Army Corps of Engineers and the soldiers go first for things like that. So that's already well established, just as many people have already told you. We can skip the autonomous cars and how he says that robots are going to replace a lot of workers, and since they're going to be out of jobs, we might as well become a socialist unity. I want to go to, I think right there. And then we're going to cover the keys of Enoch. Actually, we'll just go ahead.
Just get in, you press the button, and
Here, let me just make this bigger for you so that you can read this better. Read along with me. The keys of Enoch. God's plan has no end. It is life in the house of many mansions. There is presently occurring a space-time overlap with the higher evolution as the Earth's solar system enters an electromagnetic null zone, a vacuum area in space, which will change the magnetic forces of creation. The change of the electromagnetic density in the Earth's atmosphere will activate some species to become more violent and other species more Christ-like, as man is pulled either into an upward spiral of light or are negated by the breakdown of the old electromagnetic frequency. This is the whole point of why they are trying to keep you dumbed down, asleep, in fear, confusion, and everything else, and then flash you with the shiny shit of their new technologies. They're hoping that we go into the chaotic breakdown, because then they can just bump off who they want, and the rest of us are further enslaved by their plans. And then darkness wins. This will bring about a complete reorganization of the Earth's life system as the human creation begins to operate with a new magnetic and new electromagnetic creative power. Presently, do you see, we're getting ready to become even more amplified in our abilities. And guys, I've already learned firsthand that we can raise people from the dead. I've done it myself. I've done it with animals, plants, and then my child. If you don't know my story, look back in my videos. My story is there. Presently, there is also a galactic war and house cleaning that is being completed throughout the universe, which will advance some forms of population 1 intelligence to a population 2 star region intelligence, and recycle the other forms of population 2 intelligence, which have used their knowledge to create aberrations in the heavens. Now, we are leveling up or falling away for a redo. It's really that simple. And when I first realized this about 15, 20 years ago, I thought that part of my mission was to wake up as many people as I could and save them. And tried as I may, the ones who want to be asleep stay asleep. They don't listen. They don't heed the warning. They label you. They call you crazy. They dismiss you. They think you're far out. You're space cadet, all kinds of things. But I'm telling you, the science is here to back this up. The science is here to back all this up. Everything I've always known. Everything I've always tried to teach. And that free will choice belongs to you and only you. Nobody can change it. I think I want to go this way because this is a beautiful, perfect picture of us being in the dark rift of the Milky Way. This is us right here. This is one solar system in the arm, and this is another area of solar system in the arm of the Milky Way galaxy. Do you see us right here on the edge of this dark rift as we are traversing across here? We are in the dark rift, ladies and gentlemen. We're in the early stages of it, but we're there. Okay, why is this not letting me? There it goes, finally. All right, let's see what we got here, because I have a little bit more on this other video.
That's taken for granted.
Think we'll make contact with alien within the next 50 years?
Well, that's a really tough one to say. I mean, if there are super intelligent aliens out there, they're probably already observing us. That would seem quite likely, and we just are not smart enough to realize it. But I can do some back-of-the-envelope calculations.
That I will agree with.
And any advanced alien civilization that was at all interested in populating the galaxy, even without exceeding the speed of light, even if you're only moving at, say, 10 or 20% of the speed of light, you could populate the entire galaxy in, let's say, 10 million years, maybe 20 million years max. This is nothing, in the grand scheme of things.
There's going to be people out there that we can have a base on the moon. We're going to have a city on Mars. Maybe we could go further, moons of Jupiter and everything. I think that's a very exciting future, and I think most people do.
And you seriously want to be buried on Mars?
Just not on impact. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna listen, we're all gonna die someday. So if you're gonna die someday, I'm like, okay, do you want to be buried on Mars or Earth? I'm like, Mars sounds cool. Born on Earth, die on Mars. That's
I'm sure some of you caught the hand gesture symbolism that he did at the end there when he said we're all going to die someday, because he knows a lot of information that he is not disclosing to the public, including that all of those planets and the moon he just mentioned are already inhabited and were before we got there. So I want to go now to this right here. Actually, hold on. Is that wrong way? I want to show you. This is the graph, excuse me, where they have actually measured this resonance frequency that is coming from the center of our Milky Way galaxy and resonating outward. Okay, this zone here is where Earth is. And it's resonating currently at 150 megahertz, which is ironically what the human DNA is resonating at as well. So it's emitting something that's changing us within our DNA. This is visual scientific evidence that this is a cyclical and celestial and cosmological change that's happening to us, because we are very much a part of the cosmos and their makeup. So when they change, we change. That no one can stop. They're trying to stop us from waking up, but the energy is already resonating within you. You're already beginning the awakening. You see? We'll revisit this, that they're calling hallucinations, but it's really an uptick in psychic abilities. And they know that there's a correlation, a real link between the psychic abilities and Earth's magnetosphere. They also know that Earth's magnetosphere is being affected by the galactic plane, by this resonance that is emanating out to us. Prime creator plan. You want to trust a plan, that's the one to trust. We're going to revisit this now. Transpersonal awareness is experiencing your relationship to the wholeness and the connection of other souls, the connection to the universe. It is the natural connection between the spark of divinity that is your conscious soul with any of the chaos and intelligence of creation. This awareness is expressed through the enlightenment of the internal conscious awareness capacity to be in direct and receptive, sentient and sensorial union with any and all of the spiritual and material aspects of any object of perception. This skill is available to everyone. It is possible without anything other than childlike humility to truly wake up and see what is, and not what you expect or want. This is sharing connection, riding the quantum entanglement that is very real and scientifically proven, riding those currents between everything in the living universe that is, discovering how all of creation is available. All wisdom, all knowledge is available to be connected with your own consciousness. If you truly invite it in and intend it and allow it and become its agency. What timeline will it be, guys? It truly is up to us. In the next video, we're going to cover
it really highlights
the science behind how we can heal, how we can change, how we can raise the dead, grow back a digit, heal bones that are broken. All things that I have done personally to prove this is real and to benefit my children. Not all of it was just done out of straight up trying to prove that it's real, because once I learned it was real, absolutely I was going to use it for good. Absolutely. And I've taught my 7 children to do the same, 5 of whom are adults now, one of which rendered our vehicle invisible to prevent a truck with a hay wagon attached to the back of it from driving through my driver's door and killing all of us. She rendered us invisible somehow. With her thought, she made us be able to pass through that truck completely unscathed. We are powerful beings. This is not something that only I can do because I'm a light worker, or only my family can do because we're chosen ones or some shit. Oh, I may very well be an earth angel and a light worker. And I do miraculous things. So can you. Guaranteed, so can you. Many others have before me, and many more will beyond me. Because my truest goal is to teach you that and have a really beneficial trickle out effect. And if I or others would have ever said, it's probably not possible, then that truck would have hit us and I would be dead. And so would my youngest daughter and my adult daughter, who was my 4th born. The rest of my children would have been left without a mother and 2 sisters. My oldest daughter would have died at the age of 11 if I would have said, I can't raise the dead. That's something only God or Jesus could do. But if you'll remember, that Bible teaches you that Lazarus, didn't Lazarus also raise someone from the dead? I might be confused on that. I know Jesus raised Lazarus back from the dead, but it seems to me maybe Lazarus was doing great works too. And all 12 of Jesus's disciples were sent off in 12 directions to do his same great works. My finger would have never grown back, that I really like, and I have a really pretty fingernail on it. That would have never grown back if I'd have said, I'm limited. I can't do that. My aunt, who was struck by lightning twice, and yes, at the same place, she wouldn't have survived if she'd have said, I can't, I'm powerless here. She had a will to survive. My elderly ex-mother-in-law, God rest her soul, would have lost one of her children to electrocution if she hadn't have acted quickly and moved a full-size chest deep freezer to save her child. She didn't say, I can't, in that moment. That grandpa whose grandchild fell off the back of his tractor and was underneath the wheel of his tractor. Or the two girls who saved their dad from being run over by his tractor. If those people would have said, I can't, their loved ones wouldn't be alive today to tell that story. My grandmother would have never removed third-degree burn heat from her 3-year-old son that had fallen against a wood stove if she would have limited herself and said, I can't. And she was a faithful Christian. Jesus would have never healed the blind or the crippled or raised the dead if he would have said, I can't and I'm limited. Moses would have never parted the Red Sea and freed the people from Egypt. Martin Luther King Jr. would have never led the people into their own sense of freedom and equal rights if he would have said, I can't, I'm just one person. Many things, you know. I wouldn't have been able to raise my own blood pressure when I was bleeding to death. And my BP had flatlined. I've also raised my loved one's blood pressure when they flatlined after being in an accident of some sort, and saved them. My brother and I have helped to save my mother from 3 heart attacks that could have been fatal. And after the 3rd one, we decided to, again, remove limitations. And her heart doctor, now she's at the age of 88, and her heart doctor says that she has a very healthy heart and he doesn't understand why. You know, my mother, she recently fell and broke 3 vertebrae in her lower back and her wrist. 3 weeks ago, actually. And my brother and I continued to give her healing energy, and her 3 vertebrae are repaired. We didn't focus on her wrist and it still broke. So now we're working on that. But it wasn't the important focal point, you see. Because even in that, we wanted to focus on the one thing rather than the whole but we limited ourselves because we could have and should have, in hindsight, healed her entire body. You know, the broken wrist, the vertebrae, the whole thing. But we were so worried about her breaking her back and being elderly, you know, that was our focal point. The point here is for all of these examples, is that nobody said, I can't. And then they could. And we're given all of these really great little sayings that are passed down to us, you know, be careful what we wish for, mind our thoughts. The story of the little engine that could, you know, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. It's teaching you that you have free will. And will is power. Thought is power. Focus is power. Emotion is power. And if you know how to use your powers for good, you can do a lot of beautiful things. You can do a lot of really beautiful, helpful things for yourself, for others, for the world. Let's save the world together. All right, I'm going to close this out. And next video, we're going to understand on the cellular level scientific fact to back up how we can heal and grow our limbs back and repair organs and repair broken bones and raise the dead and so on and so forth. Until then, be well and be light and be blessed.